Okay, everybody can see my screen?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome. My name is Michael Johnson, and I am honored that you have taken time out your busy Saturday to join me and to learn a little bit about commercial real estate. Commercial real estate is certainly different than your single family and your 2 to 4s. So I am excited. If you have any questions, just type in the chat box or either just interrupt me, and we're going to learn together about commercial. The goal of this class is pretty simple. It's to gain enough knowledge to understand the basic concepts of investing in commercial real estate. I do have a mission statement. My mission statement is to impact, improve, and enhance the quality of your life by helping you create wealth through real estate so that you will ensure prosperity for future generations. So I'm very excited about this because commercial real estate is one of my passions, and I am really excited about getting going here. So let's go forward. What is commercial real estate? Well, let me tell you what commercial real estate is not. Number one, it's not a single family used as a primary residence, nor is it 2 to 4 units. The reasons it is not 2 to 4 units is because 2 to 4 units is really still under a single family type structure, conventional financing, FHA financing, all of that. When you start talking about commercial, it is totally different. So let's talk about the 4 main commercial assets. Number one, you have your single family, your multifamily. Anytime you start talking about 5 units and more, you start to speak about commercial. The financing is different. Everything is different. The way you value the property is different. So that is one commercial asset. Another commercial asset is office buildings. Office buildings are a special commercial asset class. Then you have retail, which is your shopping centers, shopping malls, and things like that. Then you have industrial. So let's talk a little bit about these. Let's talk about industrial property. What type of industrial property is out there? And by the way, industrial property in commercial right now is super hot. I don't know why, ever since the pandemic, it has been a hot subject. So the types of industrial properties are warehouse space, flex space. What flex space is warehouse with maybe a combination of some office space and things like that, and storage space. Storage space right now is just awesome. It's incredible because I guess people are running out of room, and if you can get your hands on a good storage unit anywhere in the United States, you will be doing really, really good. What else is there? There's the retail property. What is retail property, which I like a lot? Retail property is neighborhood shopping centers. Could be a strip center, could be a regional mall, or what they call a QSR, a quick service retail. What is that? That's like a standalone Starbucks or a standalone McDonald's, Taco Bells, things like that. Those are quick service retails, and those are really, really good. I'm just going to skim the surface of commercial for today's class, but I do have other classes that I get really deep into valuing commercial properties and what's good. But because of the triple net on a quick service retail, and we may touch a little bit on this today, it makes it a very, very good investment. Office property, small, rural, 1 to 2 story office buildings, mid-rise and high-rise office buildings are a commercial type. And of course, your single families that has classes A, B, and C. So who's involved in commercial? It's a little bit different than a residential sale. You have a seller, you have the seller's broker, the buyer, the buyer's broker. Oftentimes you're going to have attorneys that's going to be involved. You'll have CPAs involved, and you will have vendors involved. What type of vendors? Vendors that will help you to do your tenant improvements and your build out and things like that. They're often involved in the commercial space. Let's talk about investors in commercial. What type of investors work in commercial and what type of investor are you? I'd like you to kind of place yourself as we go through this on what type of investor you would like to be. Well, you just have private investors, people that are just work for it, that's a person or an organization that wants to make a profit. They're called private investors. Then you have businesses, local business owners who want to buy a building, and they no longer want to pay rent. This is very interesting because we have small business owners that have been in business for a while and they want to no longer pay rent. So they may go look for a little standalone commercial building. And they have something called a SBA loan, which is really good for small business owners because they can indeed get in with only 15% down, which is incredible in commercial. Because usually a commercial loan, you're looking at least 35% or higher for down payment. So if you're talking about an SBA loan, it is really, really good. Institutions and REITs. Institutions, Wall Street, they're always looking to get into commercial properties. REITs are what they call real estate investment trusts. REITs always look for commercial properties so that they can set up other investment, set up other syndications and things like that. Who else? Private money investors. These are the investors that aren't necessarily interested in actually buying the property. They're more interested in actually loaning the money to individuals or businesses to buy the property. We also have foreign investors that are flooding the market from one country to get the returns on the investments here. And syndicators. Syndicators are individuals or businesses that pool their funds together to buy bigger commercial properties for a bigger return on investment. So what are the reasons to buy commercial real estate? Number one is cash flow. You want to buy commercial real estate to get cash flow because you have a smaller expense factor because of the leases on commercial, which means that you have a bigger NOI. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Principal reduction is one every time some people buy just so that they can pay down the loan so that they can get greater cash flow. Appreciation is different for commercial than it is for residential. And I'll show you why a little later on, because the appreciation actually comes from the rents. The higher your NOI, the greater your appreciation is going to be on the building. Your taxes, for tax, people buy commercial so that they can shelter their taxes and also diversify investment portfolios. Also leverage for the purchase of a 1031 deferred tax exchange. And we're going to talk a little bit about the 1031 tax exchange right now. What is it? What a 1031 deferred tax exchange is a way that people actually get the equity of property and they exchange it into another property, okay, without being taxed. Because the taxes are very, very, very large on commercial property. So the way to get around that, you do a 1031 deferred tax exchange. And here's the basic rule: 45 days to identify a property and 180 days to close. So there's a bunch of different type of 1031s. I'm just going to talk about three of them. Number one, you can do it simultaneously, which means that you are you're selling a property and you're buying another property. You can delay it, or you can do what they call a reverse, which means that you can actually get a piece of property, buy it first, and then sell your subject property in order to complete the 1031. If you have any information, if you want any information on the 1031, please let me know, because I can certainly give you more information. All right, let's talk about how do we value commercial real estate? What do we do? Well, first of all, what we have to do is understand there's really two ways that we do it. One is by a cap rate, and that's the most accurate way that we can do it. And another way is called the GRM, which is the gross rent multiplier. And it is not very accurate, but it's a fast and dirty way to do it. So let's look at these two. Let's look at the cap rate. The cap rate is the rate of return expected by the investor, it's kind of equal to the interest rate offered by the bank. So therefore, the cap rate is the rate of return that you would expect if you paid cash for the building. If you paid cash for any property, your cap rate is what you can expect. What is a good cap rate with real estate? Well, it all depends on what part of the country you're in. California, the cap rate is a little low, 3.5%. In other places like in Arkansas and the Midwest, your cap rates can go up as high as 8, 9, 10, 11% because of just the pricing on the property. Let's talk a little bit about the gross rent multiplier. What the gross rent multiplier is the value of the property when measured by how many times the annual rents. Whenever we start to evaluate properties, we're always going to start with the gross scheduled rent. How much money are we collecting? So in order to value a property with the gross rent multiplier, number one, you have to know two things. You have to know, number one, how much is the annual gross rents? Number two, which area are you in? Okay, because different areas carry different GRM numbers, gross rent multiplier numbers. For example, if you're in Downey, for example, or Lakewood, or places like that, it's going to carry a certain number. That number may be 8, for example. And if the gross income is 100,000, if you multiply 8 by 100,000, then the value of that property is going to be about $800,000. If you're in Beverly Hills and Newport Beach, the GRM number may be as high as 18, 19, 20. So therefore, if you take the same 100,000, multiply by 20, now you're at 2 million. So it really is a quick and dirty way to come up with a value of a property, but the most effective way is a capitalization rate. So let's go through this. What you have to do in order to value a property using a cap rate, you take the total amount of operating income, and don't worry, I'm going to go through this with you. This is just kind of like a overview, and then I'm going to break it down for you. Then what you do is that you take the operating expenses of that property. You're going to take, and if the property is mastered metered, let me tell you what that is. When you're buying multifamily, and these are some of the older buildings, they didn't have a meter for each unit. If you had a 20-unit building, you didn't have 20 gas meters, you didn't have 20 electric meters. What you might have had was one gas meter, one electric meter, and one water meter for the whole entire building. That's called a master meter building. So obviously the expenses for the owner is going to be much higher because they have to pay all the electric bill, all the gas bill, and all the water. Now, these charges can be billed back to the tenants, but as far as valuing the property, you have to remember that master metered properties, the expenses are going to be higher. I haven't seen a lot of master metered properties anymore, but you might run across some once you start to search and see what you have here. So there's something called an NOI, net operating income. Your NOI is the most important number that you can actually have when it comes to commercial property, because that's the number that's going to help you get to so many other numbers that you're going to need. For example, it's going to help you to get to your cap rate. It's going to help you get to your cash flow. It's going to help you get to your cash on cash return and things like that. So it's important that you understand what is the net operating income of any property. And of course, you need to know the price. Once you get those factors, you can always come up to your cap rate. You can always come up to what are you looking for in order for to get the return that you want when you purchase a commercial property. The gross rent multiplier is just pretty much like I said. You got your annual rent times the actual GRM, whatever number, and that number is always going to be determined about what area that you are investing in. So let's talk about gross scheduled income. This is the terminology for the evaluations. What is gross scheduled income? Gross scheduled income is the amount of rent that you have coming in. It could be the amount of rent coming in on apartment buildings. It could be the amount of rent coming in on the strip center. It doesn't make any difference. These evaluations are going to be good for whatever property you want to evaluate, as long as it's commercial. So we're looking for the gross scheduled income. We're looking for a vacancy factor. What is vacancy factor? Vacancy factor is the factor that the bank, once you get a loan, is always going to put on a property. The vacancy factor in California is 5%. So if you're going to get a loan, the bank is always going to use a vacancy factor, always. Even if the property is 100% occupied, they're still going to put a 5% vacancy factor on that property. Economic vacancy, what is that? Economic vacancy is if you have to supplement for rents that you are giving for free. For example, let's say that you have a commercial property and the property needs to be built out for the tenant. You're going to give that tenant X amount of months of free rent so that the tenant can build out those units, or that unit. That's called economic vacancy factor. Net rental income. What the net rental income is what you get once you subtract the vacancy factor from your gross scheduled income. And I'm going to show you an example of this so that you won't be so lost, because this could be very new to some of you and it could be kind of overwhelming, but just hang with me. I'm going to bring it all together. Other income is income that comes besides the gross scheduled rent. In other words, it could be a billboard, it could be storage, it could be laundry, it could be vending machines, it could be a cell tower on top of it. It's any other income besides the rent, which gives you your total operating income. Then you have your operating expenses. Then you have your net operating income. That's how you get to that. So let's see how all this works out. Here we go. All right, let's look at our rent roll first. Let's look at our income. This is an example of a 6-unit apartment building. There are some 2 bedrooms and 1 bedrooms that's kind of sprinkled in here. Now, on your rent roll, you're always going to see some things that you need to know about. Number one, how big is each unit? That's a unit square footage. What's the current rent on that particular property? And what is the current rent per square footage? For example, unit number 1 is a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,100 square feet. The rent is $19.95. And the current rent per square foot is $1.81. Why is that important? That's important because you want to compare what the rent is to this particular building to the other buildings in the area. So it's important for you to know if the rent is high, if the rent is low, whatever it is. Because remember what I told you, your appreciation, the value of the property comes from how much rent that you're getting off of the building. And if you're buying in Los Angeles, or if you're buying in California, especially apartment buildings. Now, commercial buildings, it doesn't make any difference. But when it comes to apartment buildings, you got to be careful because you have something called rent control. And rent control does not allow you to raise the rent to anywhere you want to raise it to. So if you're buying a unit, excuse me, you have to be careful about what the rents are, because you can only raise the rents 5% a year. And if you have low rents and if you have high expenses, the property is probably not going to make any sense. So little golden nugget there for you. All right, so at the bottom here, we have monthly rental income of 10,220. And the annual gross income is $125,040. That's what you call your gross scheduled income. Okay. Let's move on here. So how do we determine total operating income? Here's an example. You got your scheduled market rent, which is, let's say it's an example of $122,640. That's your scheduled market rent. Then you have a vacancy factor. Remember, I talked to you about that. The bank is going to take 5% of that scheduled market rent, and that comes up to be $6,132. Then we're going to, so that becomes, so our net rental income, the item in the middle here is $116,508. All right, that's your net rental income. Then let's say we have some other income, such as we're renting out our garages. We have another $2,400 a year. So our TOI, our total operating income, is $118,908. That's very important, because what you got is you got your income that you want to make sure that you know what your total operating income is. So let's go through it again. Your scheduled market rent, subtract your 5% vacancy, you're adding on any other income that you might have, and that's going to give you what they call the total operating income. Okay, any questions so far? All right, you guys must be getting this. Let's talk about the expenses a little bit. There's something I want you to remember. It's called TUMMI, T-U-M-M-I. It's going to help you to remember what expenses are used in every situation for commercial property. First expense is your taxes. That stands for T. You got your utilities, because you're going to have utilities on the property. That's your U. 1M is your maintenance, because there's always going to be maintenance on the property. Trust me. Management, there's always going to be management on the property. Let me talk about this quickly. If you hire a property management company, or if you do management yourself, it's still an expense. Why is it an expense when you do management yourself? Is because your time is worth money all the time. Just because you're doing it, that doesn't mean it's not worth anything. It's worth a lot, because you're taking time out your busy schedule to go fix toilets, to deal with tenants, and do whatever. So there's always going to be some form of management of the property. Properties do not manage themselves. And then you have your insurance, your liability insurance. So if you remember those 5 things, TUMMI, then you will always at least have a bare minimum expense that you should apply to each property when you are valuing the property. Okay, let's move on here. TUMMI are always items that you write a check for. They're items that you write a check for. So let's look at an example. And the total operating expenses should be 30 to 35% of the operating income. Okay, 35% of the operating income. But if it's mastered metered, remember what that is. That's if you have only 1 meter for each utility. If you have 20 units and you only have 1 electrical meter, you only have 1 gas meter, you only have 1 water meter for the entire building, that's master meter, and the expenses will be higher. So here's a quick example. Let's say that we have some advertising. Got to advertise to get the units rented. You got a legal thing happening. You want to make sure that you might have to evict some people or whatever, unfortunately. You got your repairs and maintenance. That's one of the things in TUMMI, right? Your management fees, that's another M in TUMMI. Utilities, that's the U in TUMMI. Your taxes and your insurance, okay? So in this particular case, your total operating expenses is $41,000 for the year. These are annual figures. Okay, so how do we determine net operating income? It's pretty easy. Only thing you have to do is you got to take your total operating income. You remember how we got to that, and you subtract your operating expenses. Okay, so it becomes very easy. Here's an example. You have your operating income at 118,680. Your total operating expense is 41,000. You subtract it, and this is how you come up with your NOI, which is called your net operating income. In this particular case, is 77,680. That's an annual figure. Now, let's determine our cap rate, because we want to know what is our rate on return. Remember, the cap rate is the rate of return if we would pay cash for the building. So are we ready? Let's go. Our net operating income is 77,680. And it's easy. You just divide it by the sales price, which is, in this case, let's say we're going to pay $1 million for the building. If you divide your 77,680 by $1 million, you're going to come up with a 7.768 cap rate, which is excellent. If any of you out here that's listening to me find this sort of deal, buy it, call me. We'll make an offering on it immediately, because this is a great cap rate for California. Maybe not that great for other parts of the country, but it's a very good cap rate. So this is just an example of how to determine what your cap rate is, but your cap rate, remember, is kind of like your rate of return on any commercial property. This is what you want to value. This is what you want to make sure you know in your mind what type of cap rate you might be interested in and looking for. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I didn't want to go too deep into the woods because commercial is a very deep subject. I just kind of wanted to give you an overview of what type of commercial properties are out there. I want to give you an overview of what type of investor that you might think that you want to be. And I want to give you a quick overview of how to quickly evaluate properties. This is my information. I am more than willing to help you to evaluate any properties. I'm more than willing to help you to find some properties. If commercial isn't for you right now, let's just start with something small. Let's just start with maybe a 2-unit, a 3-unit, something like that. Whatever you want to start with, I'm here to help you. I am a qualified lender. I can help you find financing that's suitable for you, that I think that would be something good for you. So I'm going to open it up for questions. Let's see if we have any questions from anybody right now. Please, any questions from anybody? Okay. If there's hey there, Ms. McHenry, how are you?
Thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to thank you for doing this. I think it's absolutely wonderful. And so it's a lot of information, to digest. So I'm going to, read a little bit more. What I'm interested in, I wanted to tap on what you said about SBA. I'm interested in opportunity zones. And
Okay.
I have an education program. And so I want to bring my education program to opportunity zones. And I wonder if you could comment or share anything on that.
Absolutely. Opportunity zones are a great way right now in order to not only obtain property now, but in the future, because when they start to do some zoning changes, or whenever they start to do special things for these opportunity zones, you will be in a good position to do it. So you are, I'm assuming that you have a business, right?
Yes.
Okay. And the business that you have, you want to possibly get a little small commercial property or something and run the business out of it?
Yes, I actually, I have a really big vision in terms of, and I know it's a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step.
Yes.
And I get that. So I want to, like you said, get a property and then have a center there, an academic center there, and then be able to move out and get other centers.
Absolutely. That's a great thing. And the way you're starting is the right way because you want to look at an SBA loan, which I can help
Okay.
you with. Okay, because an SBA loan will allow you to, number one, get into the property with a lot less down.
Okay.
We're talking about 10% to 15% down. You have
Okay.
to occupy 51% of the property. So
Okay.
this is a great opportunity. Think about it. You can buy maybe a 2-unit commercial property,
Uh-huh.
occupy 51% and rent out the other space. And the other space can help pay for your mortgage.
Thank you.
And you can
Okay.
run your business out of it. So it becomes really exciting from that standpoint. Okay, because it doesn't have to be one space. It could be three units, 3 commercial units. But as
All
long
right.
as you occupy 51% of the total property, you can apply for an SBA loan.
Thank you.
Absolutely. That is awesome. And I want to make sure I have your information. So if you can type your information into the chat box, I like to make sure that I get it. Okay.
Great. Thank
And
you.
you can just type it directly to me. Okay, MK. Hey, sir, welcome to the call. Thank you so much for joining me. Got a question. MK would like to know, can master meters be changed out to put individual meters in each unit? Absolutely, they can be. They can be. They can be changed out. You can, let's say you have a 20-unit property, you can actually put in 20 gas meters and 20 electric meters. You can absolutely do that. That's not a problem. But here's another thing. You can actually charge the tenants back for their portion of the electric bill, for their portion of the gas bill, okay? So if you do find a really good deal on a master meter building, don't worry, you won't be stuck with paying the whole amount. You'll be able to charge back a certain portion, which would make the building profitable for you because now you're not carrying that whole load. So when you first evaluate the building, you have to make sure that you understand in the back of your mind that you're going to be billing that money back. So if you find a master meter building that makes sense, even without billing it out, then you know you're going to have some nice cash flow. That's for sure. That's going to be part of the deal. Okay. All right. That was a great question, MK. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. If there's no other questions, I really, really appreciate everyone being on here. And I want to let everybody know next month is Financial Literacy Awareness Month in April. I want everyone to be on the lookout for, I'm going to do some great presentations with some great financial planners. Each week in April, we're going to have some guests on that's going to talk about financial literacy, everything people need to know about. We've got financial planners that's going to be talking about all type of great financial vehicles that's going to educate us on financial literacy. It's going to be a great month next month. So I want everybody to be tuned in to my information. I think I have everybody here on my list. Ms. McHenry, if you don't mind, I'm going to put you on my list too, so I can keep you in the know, so that you will be a part of this, because you might know people, young people, our people need to understand about financial literacy. We need to know more about how to create wealth not only through real estate, through other financial products as well. And I'm super excited about it because I have 3 awesome speakers that's going to each week, they're going to take their turns talking about different subjects that's going to help us out. So I'm excited about it. And I want you guys to help me to invite as many young people as possible, people, period, but young folks, millennials, that we can educate these people and help them to grow into the people we want them to be. All right. Thank you so much. I love all you guys. Thank you for joining me on this Saturday. And I really look forward to meeting you and doing more with you. And Ms. McHenry, I do look forward to talking to you more. Okay. Thank you so much. You
Thank
guys
you.
have a
And you
great
have a
one.
wonderful day.
Thank you so much. Have a
Bye-bye.
good one. Bye-bye.